Today is March the 10th, 2004, and this is the beginning of an interview with Jack Cohen at the Winchester City Hall in Winchester, Kentucky. Mr. Cohen is 79 years old, having been born
in Winchester.
In Winchester. On what's your birthday?
November the 8th, 1924.
Okay. My name is Richard Dowdy, and I will be the interviewer. Don Rose is running the camera and keeping the log. Mr. Cohen, would you state what war or branch of service you were in?
I was in the Signal Corps in World War II.
What was the highest rank that you?
Staff Sergeant.
Where did you serve it?
My last point of service was in Korea, where with the first occupation troops in Korea after the this was before the Korean conflict, and it was after service at Okinawa. I was involved with the invasion of Okinawa.
Drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted in the enlisted reserve on November the 11th, 1942, and I was called to active duty on on April the 10th, 1943. And then I served until active duty until March 13th, 46, and I was in the reserve for 3 years after that. My enlistment in the reserve ran out in 1949, just before the Korean conflict.
Why did you enlist?
Well, I was 18 at the time, and I knew it was inevitable that I would be called before too long. I was in college at the time, and so at that time they were calling people rather rapidly, and I felt I needed to go ahead and get into the operation there.
Where were you living at the time?
Here in Winchester.
With your parents? Or?
Yes. I was going to University of Kentucky, first year, freshman.
Did you get to pick the branch of service you went in, or did they?
Well, I was a pre-med student at college, and when I went in, they put me into the medical corps for medical corps basic training. And then after the medical corps basic training, I took a test and qualified for the Army Specialized Training Program, which was ongoing at that time. And I was in that for about 9 months and assigned to several different colleges for college courses. And then that was disbanded, and I was placed in the Signal Corps.
Where did you go with boot camp?
I went to Camp Crowder for training, and we became part of a company that was organized strictly for one purpose at that time, for the invasion of Okinawa.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember your first day you went in?
Pardon me?
Do you recall the first day when you went in?
Yes. From when I first enlisted, went on active duty, it was raining. I was supposed to go to Cincinnati, and it was a long day. We left here, I think, 4 in the morning in heavy rain. So,
did it make you feel too good, did it?
Well, I was sort of predisposed and wondering what the future was going to be, but it seemed to have turned out all right, knowing what I know now.
Can you tell us a little bit about your basic training?
Well, there was a basic training for medical corps, and as well as I recall, it lasted about 3 months, very active 3 months in Camp Barkley, Texas. At that time, it was very dry, very hot, and it was sort of an ordeal to someone that wasn't used to that climate. But we made do, and we survived it. We didn't think we would, but we did. Because I was quite a bit younger, 18 at the time.
Do you remember your instructors?
Pretty much so. We had a bunch of former doctors who had been in private duty, and some of the officers were what they call medical administrative corps officers, so they weren't doctors, but they were just the administrative people for the organization.
So your boot camp was mostly medical training?
Medical training, yes.
Did you ever go through the regular boot camp, basic training?
No, that was the regular boot camp
Okay.
at that time.
How long was that?
About 3 months.
Okay. Where did you go after that?
Well, I was stationed at Syracuse University for a period of time, and it was at Syracuse that I met my wife, so that goes back 60 years almost. And after the ASTP program was discontinued, that's when I went to Camp Crowder, Missouri, to the Signal Corps, and I remained in the Signal Corps for the rest of my service, active duty service in the Army.
How long was that training?
Well, it was ongoing. As I mentioned before, this particular company that we were assigned to was organized strictly with one purpose in mind. That was for the invasion of Okinawa, which was almost a year later. But that was planned that far in advance. That was our sole mission, was to be in the Okinawa invasion.
So after you left Signal Corps school, where did you go after that?
Well, I stayed in the Signal Corps until the end of my term in the active duty.
Okay, but I mean, after you left the school, where did you go?
Well, we went overseas. After the training, we went to through Seattle, Fort Lawton, and went to Hawaii for several weeks of more training and getting our equipment ready and so forth. And then we were assigned to a ship that we were on board the ship for 40 some odd days, cruising around because they didn't have any place for us to go, waiting for the invasion, which was on Easter Sunday morning, April the 1st of 1945.
Do you remember what ship you were on?
I forgot the name of it. Our company was divided in several groups, and different groups were on different ships. But we stopped at 2 different places, I think, or 3, en route to Okinawa. The idea was to be available on this particular day for the invasion. So they had to put us someplace. So we just kind of cruised around. We went to Eniwetok and had a rest stop there, and then we went to Leyte in the Philippines. And then they met up with some other ships, and we were in the harbor at Okinawa on April the 1st of 1945 during the initial invasion. There were something like 1,400 ships involved. It was a massive operation.
Did you go in the first day of operation?
No, I went in on the 5th day. But the first few days were just like a massive fireworks display with all these naval vessels firing at the same time, and of course there were kamikaze planes coming in, and we thought one was going to hit us, and it missed us and hit the ship right next to it.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, it's strange. We never thought too much about it. Most of the fellows that were on the deck just ran over to the rail and looked out, and we had some people that were playing cards on the deck, never got up. We just didn't take it real seriously.
Did you all know what kamikaze pilots were then, or had they
No,
told
not
you?
really, not really.
Okay. So it was kind of a shock that they were
Yeah.
flying.
Mhm.
Okay. Did you, after you made it a long thing, did you actually see combat?
No, we were attached or assigned to the 10th Army headquarters as the signal company. Of course, on Okinawa, you weren't that far away from it, but we were the ones that set up the communication systems for between the Army headquarters and the rest of the ground troops and combat troops.
So you never actually fired upon or had to fire back?
Well, I was fired on, but never had to fire back.
Do you have any casualties in your unit or anything?
We lost one man going ashore. He fell out of the vehicle, the duck, and had full equipment on, and he drowned.
Did you receive any medals or any commendations while you were there?
No special medals, no.
How'd you stay in touch with your family?
Well, it was the V-mail, which was frequent, but it took a period of time to get answers and so forth. Mail wasn't too bad. Might go several days or weeks before you got mail, but then all of a sudden you get a whole stack of it.
While you board ship, the food was pretty good?
Yes, the sailors fed real well. Of course, it changed after we got on shore. It wasn't anything to brag about by any means, but we never thought too much about it. Like I say, we were young and didn't pay attention to really the situation as far as being concerned about the details or anything like that.
What kind of food did you eat aboard shore?
I don't remember really, but we ate I guess reasonably well. It wasn't all sea rations or anything like that, but.
So you were kind of a real element, not actually?
Well, more or less, yes, but really there wasn't that far back. Because, like I said, it was a small island. But
How big is Okinawa, you remember?
no, I don't.
Okay. Did you have plenty of supplies or anything?
Yeah, we did. Of course, that was the very beginning, and like I say, there were 1,400 ships, and they brought stuff in constantly.
Did you feel any pressure or stress while you were over there?
I don't know. We didn't think too much about it, really. I guess one of the first comical things was the first day we landed, they told us to dig in, and this buddy and I were digging a foxhole, and we hit rock. And we only got down about 8 or 10 inches, it seemed like, and we hit the rock. And our captain, who was a West Pointer, came by and he said, "Oh, don't worry about it." He says, "You just want to be down low enough so that concussion doesn't bother you and it doesn't cave in on you." So we accepted that, didn't pay too much attention to it. The next morning I was walking around in our area there, and I walked by the captain's foxhole, and you could get in there and stand up on it in it. But it was different from what he told us.
Okinawa was like a volcanic island, isn't it?
Partially, yes. And, of course, we were told during the training period that be careful, that they had a lot of poisonous snakes and other problems that we didn't find them when we got there. We never saw a snake.
Did you do anything special for good luck? Or?
No, like I say, we were young and didn't pay attention to it. We just went with the flow. They told us what to do and what they wanted, and we did it, and that was it.
Did you do any other practical jokes on each other? You talked about the hole. Did you do any other jokes on each other?
Not really. I mean, everybody was buddy-buddy, but they were serious.
You got along pretty good with everybody, your officers?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Were they pretty good to you?
Yeah, they really were.
You talked about you got to go on some liberty before you got there. Where'd you go? Got off the ship?
Well, at Anahuac was a small island that was sort of a rest stop. And we thought it was wonderful when we got there because they had Coca-Colas, and we weren't used to that. But we had a couple days there. And when we stopped in the Philippines at Leyte, most of us were not allowed to leave the ship. We had to stay on board.
Did you keep a diary or anything?
No, I didn't. Of course, years later, I wished I had. But one of the things that I got many years later was a document that was released after the Freedom of Information Act kicked in. And it was a document that described what the invasion of Japan was going to be like. In May of 1945, the chiefs of staff of all the services agreed to a plan for the invasion of Japan, which was scheduled for November the 1st of 45. The plan was approved by Truman, I think in July of that year. And this was before the end of the war, certainly. And before we'd ever gotten to we were at Okinawa at the time, and they had a plan set up that showed how many units would be involved. I think it was something like 3,000 ships. And where each unit would land in Japan, and each beach had a name after a automobile, like a Hudson or Chevrolet Beach or Buick Beach or something like that. That's how they distinguish which beaches. And they knew which groups would be going to which beach. They predicted that in the overall campaign, there'd be about 1 million casualties for the Japanese invasion. So we didn't know about that at the time. As I say, I found out about 50 years later at an Army reunion about these plans. And at the time, of course, some of the officers knew about the plan, but we had no idea. And they said that they expected something like 1,000 men to be killed an hour for a while. They were going to have 2 major offensives in the invasion. They knew exactly what to expect, and they knew that Japan was going to be prepared with everything they had, and there was to be a large quantity, a real large quantity of people in the from the U.S. that would be involved. Plus, at that time, they were expecting the men that were stationed in Europe to be brought back and sent to assist us. So fortunately for the atomic bombs, that stopped the World War II there and eliminated the need for the Japanese invasion and all the casualties.
Were you on Okinawa when they dropped the bomb?
Mm-hmm.
How did you receive the word that they...
Well, we didn't know what it was really, how big it was or what was involved, but they came through and told us that the atomic bombs had been dropped. Of course, we had no knowledge of it, of what they were really involved, and we didn't get that, the information was rather piecemeal. But thanks to the atomic bomb, those of us that are still around were fortunate that we didn't have to go on to Japan.
Do you remember what happened when got the word that war had ended?
Yes, very well. Some of the men who were with the Air Transport Corps that used to fly in various supplies and so forth came around with bottles of whiskey that they were selling, and people were grabbing them like mad to celebrate.
Did the Japanese, were they still on the island, Okinawa? Or?
There were some, oh yes.
Was there still any kind of firefights or anything?
Well, we didn't know about that. It pretty much ended pretty quickly.
And then after
they got word. Now there were people that stayed in some of the caves for several years after the war was over.
Then after that where did you go after the war ended?
Well, we were with the first occupation troops in Korea. We had never heard of Korea before, really. And it had another name was Chosin. And we left Okinawa on the tail end of a hurricane. And I was on an LSM being transported over there. And it would go up in the air, I don't know, it seemed like 10 stories high and then just fall flat. So it was pretty rough traveling, but we didn't pay attention to it. And when we got to Korea, we were first stationed at Seoul and tried to reestablish some of the communication equipment that they had there. Then we were sent down to Busan, which was at the southern part of Korea. And altogether, I was there, I think maybe 6 months, something like that. And by that time, it was there were enough points to be discharged and back home.
Do you remember what it was like when you got out?
Got up?
Yeah, when you got out of service, I remember.
Well, when we first got back to the States, I remember they had a lot of celebrations of the fireboats and everybody meeting the troop ships, and there's just a lot of happiness about getting back and well received.
Where did you come at? What port were you in?
We came back to Seattle.
Where did you go after that?
Then we came back to Camp Atterbury, and we were discharged at Camp Atterbury, Indiana.
Then you came back to Winchester? Did you go back to work or school or?
Well, I'd planned to go back to school, and then some things came up, and I went back to work and worked the rest of the time. I didn't go back to college.
Where did you work at?
Well, I was with my father in the liquor dispensary, retail liquor store for 30 years, and then after that, I went to work as manager of the Winchester Clark County Ambulance Service, which is where I met you.
That's right.
I was there for 13 years.
Sure. Did you make any close friends while you were in the service?
Oh, yes. I had a call from one just a few weeks ago that wanted to know if I was coming to the memorial in Washington, D.C. in May.
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you have reunions very often?
Well, that's interesting, too. Up until, I think it was 91, I had not had any association with any of the former members that I was with. And I happened to see in American Legion magazine that my old outfit, the 529th Signal Operations Company, was having a reunion. So I called the fellow that whose name was associated with it, and it turned out that he was a fellow in one of the other platoons that I didn't know. But I found out why they had not contacted me. I was on the list of deceased. So at the next reunion I attended, I kind of surprised some of the fellows by showing up. And then I was able to attend, I think, 3 other reunions. And we haven't had one for several years now because it's gotten dwindled down to a small number. And there are several that are planning to go to the memorial in Washington, D.C.
Which memorial is that?
In May, the dedication of the memorial for veterans.
For World War II?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you say you belong to the American Legion?
Yes, I have been for 50 some odd years.
Do you think your military experience influenced the way you think about the military
Oh,
and war in general?
By all means. But the thing is, we didn't, at the time, didn't pay too much of attention to it because we just went ahead with our job and whatever was asked of us, and we didn't question it or wonder what the policy behind it meant or whatever.
Do you think your military experience helped you through your career?
Yes, I think it did because I had to grow up pretty quickly. You know, the first time away from home and you're home for 3 years, away from home for 3 years, makes a difference.
Is there anything else you would like to add that we haven't discussed?
No, I think we've talked quite a bit, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share some of the experiences and what little that I did become exposed to.
Well, we thank you, Jack, for coming in and giving us your story. It's been interesting.
Glad to be part of it.